You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
What's up, guys? It's Braden here from Dragon King Sports, and today we are talking about one of the most famous sports curses, the curse of the Bambino, which refers to the World Series drought suffered by the Boston Red Sox from 1918 to 2004 after selling the rights to Babe Ruth to the Yankees, which also kickstarted one of sports' greatest rivalries as well. I'm a huge Yankees fan, and my best buddy is a Red Sox fan, so we made a deal that if the Yankees lose the opening series of the season between the two teams, I have to make a video going over this. And they lost 2 out of 3 games, so here I am. So as I said, all of this starts with Babe Ruth. The Red Sox last World Series victory prior to 2004 was actually in 1918, but the curse actually began on January 3rd, 1920, when the rights to Babe Ruth were sold to the Yankees. Babe Ruth actually began his career with a minor league team called the Baltimore Orioles, who played in the AAA International League. In 1914, Ruth had been playing for Mount St. Mary's College in Emmitsburg, Maryland, where he not only pitched but also batted in the starting lineup. The owner of the Baltimore Orioles, Jack Dunn, attended a game and was impressed by Ruth's abilities and signed him to a professional contract. He earned a monthly salary of $100, which adjusted for inflation would be about $3,140 today. His given name was George Herman Ruth, but due to inexperience in the ways of being a traveling ball player, such as not knowing the proper etiquette of eating out at a restaurant, being in a hotel, or traveling on a train, the veteran ball players on the Orioles would tease him and tell him he was like a little babe, or in other words, as inexperienced as an infant would be. The nickname stuck, and he was known as Babe from then on. Ruth debuted in actual professional competition against the Major League Philadelphia Phillies, relief pitching in the 4th, 5th, and 6th innings, giving up 2 runs both in the 4th inning. In a game against the Phillies the next day, Ruth once again came in as a relief pitcher and pitched for the rest of the game without allowing any runs and was the winning pitcher in a 7-6 Orioles victory. He continued to only get better, becoming one of the best pitchers and hitters on the team, if not the best. As the 1914 season went on, the Orioles began to experience financial hardships, causing owner Jack Dunn to sell the rights of his best players on the team in order to raise funds to stay afloat. After the reigning champions, the Philadelphia Athletics, passed on purchasing the rights to Ruth, Dunn sold his rights to the Boston Red Sox for $25,000. On July 11, 1914, Babe Ruth arrived in Boston and went to a diner to get something to eat. He met a 16-year-old waitress named Helen Woodford, who would later become his wife. And I know what you're thinking, but he was 19 years old, so even though this is a little weird, it could be worse, I suppose. Also, it was a different time. Ruth would become a star in Boston, even leading the American League in home runs in 1918 with 11, which seems low, but remember, this was the dead ball era. He won 3 World Series with the Red Sox in his time there and pitched in 2 of them. At the time the Yankees acquired him, the Yankees had not even played in a World Series. Now, the owner of the Red Sox had made his money from having a very successful brewery, but after Prohibition was passed, financial losses caused him to look for other ways to get an influx of cash. In 1920, he ended up selling the rights to Babe Ruth to the Yankees for $100,000, which is about $1.6 million in today's money. At the time, it was the largest amount ever paid for a baseball player. The deal had the condition that Ruth had to sign a new contract with the Yankees, and he did. The Red Sox, who had won 5 World Series titles from 1903 to 1920, did not even win another AL pennant until 1946. The Yankees, who had never won an AL pennant to that point, would go on to win 7 of them with Ruth on their team, as well as 3 World Series championships. The Yankees would use Ruth less as a pitcher and more as an outfielder, but when he was on the mound, he always won. Literally, he never lost a game as a pitcher for the Yankees. The Red Sox would not win another AL pennant until the year 1946, and they faced the NL champions St. Louis Cardinals in the World Series that year. They were actually favored to beat the St. Louis Cardinals, and the series went to 7 games, and Game 7 was played in St. Louis. Game 7 was tied 3-3 in the bottom of the ninth inning, and the Cardinals had a man on first. Harry Walker of the Cardinals hit a double to shallow center field, and Enos Slaughter, who was on first, somehow made it back home, securing the World Series title for the Cardinals. In 1949, the Red Sox needed to win just one of their 2 final regular season games to win the AL pennant, but the Yankees beat them twice and would go on to win the World Series that season, as well as the next 4 after that. In 1967, the Red Sox won the AL pennant again and once again faced the St. Louis Cardinals in the World Series. And just like they had in 1946, the St. Louis Cardinals beat the Boston Red Sox in 7 games. The 7th game was an absolute beatdown, with the Cardinals beating the Red Sox 7-2. In 1975, the Red Sox won the AL pennant and faced the Cincinnati Reds in the World Series. It went to Game 7 and Boston held a 3-0 lead, but the Reds tied the game at 3-3. In the top of the 9th inning, the Reds scored the go-ahead run on a single as Ken Griffey Sr. came home, which turned out to be the game-winning and series-winning run in what many baseball historians agree was one of the best World Series to ever be played. In 1978, the Red Sox held a 14-game lead on the Yankees in the American League in July, but late in the season, the Bronx Bombers went on a tear, including a 4-game sweep of the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park. That particular 4-game regular season series is still remembered by Boston fans as the Boston Massacre. The 2 teams were tied at the end of the regular season, and so they faced off in a 1-game playoff to determine who would win the AL pennant. Bucky Dent of the Yankees hit a 3-run homer off the Green Monster that bounced out of the stadium. The Yankees won the game 5-4 and went on to win the World Series that season. And now for the most famous instance of the curse striking and the most famous error in the history of Major League Baseball. In the 1986 World Series against the New York Mets, the Red Sox led the series 3-2 and got within 1 out of winning it and breaking the curse. But the Mets scored 3 runs and won it when Boston first baseman Bill Buckner committed one of the most infamous errors in the history of baseball. A ground ball was hit to first base, which is routine 99% of the time, but it rolled through Buckner's legs, which allowed Ray Knight of the Mets to come home and score, which tied the series and forced a Game 7. The Red Sox actually led 3-0 in Game 7, but went on to lose 8-5. So here's that error in full.
Little roller up along first, behind the bag, it gets through Buckner, here comes Knight and the Mets win it!
As a Yankees fan, I quite enjoyed that. That loss is actually what gave credit to the curse and really was the first time people began to speculate about it, when New York Times columnist George Vesey wrote articles talking about how the Red Sox were cursed. In both 1988 and 1990, the Red Sox played in the ALCS but got swept both times by the Oakland Athletics. They were swept in the 1995 ALDS by the Cleveland Indians, which extended their postseason losing streak to a total of 13 games. In 1998, they lost to the Indians yet again in the ALDS, this time 3-1. In 1999, they were beat by their hated rival Yankees in the ALCS 4-1, and the Yankees would go on to win the World Series that season. In 2003, the Red Sox and Yankees faced each other in the ALCS, and it went to Game 7. Boston had a 5-2 lead in the 8th inning, but the Red Sox decided to leave in an exhausted Pedro Martinez rather than put in a reliever or a closer. The Yankees capitalized on this decision and scored 3 runs late to tie the game. In the bottom of the 11th inning, Aaron Boone, who, fun fact, is currently, as of this video's release date, the Yankees manager, hit a solo walk-off homer to send the Yankees to the World Series.
Leading by 3 as Boone hits it to deep left. That might send the Yankees to the World Series. Boone, a hero in Game 7.
But before we talk about the curse being broken, let's talk about all the failed attempts to break the curse. In 1976, Lori Cabot, the official witch of Massachusetts, was brought in to help end a 10-game losing streak. The streak did in fact end, but the curse did not. In 1994, Red Sox pitcher Bill Lee even suggested they should exhume the body of Babe Ruth, bring it to Fenway, and publicly apologize to it in front of fans, which is absolutely a bonkers idea. A Boston hat has been placed atop Mount Everest, and a piano owned by Babe Ruth was pushed into a pond near a farm where Babe Ruth had once lived. But the thing that actually broke the curse is something you may not expect. On August 31st, 2004, a foul ball hit by the Red Sox's Manny Ramirez hit a 16-year-old boy named Gavin Lee, whom not only lived on the same farm in Sudbury, Massachusetts that had once been owned by Babe Ruth, but also considered Ramirez to be his favorite player. That same day, the Yankees were absolutely clobbered by the Indians 22-0, which actually was their worst loss in team history, and they had existed as a team for 101 years at that point. The Boston Globe published an article declaring the curse is broken, and many Boston fans felt the same way. The Red Sox swept the Anaheim Angels in the 2003 ALDS, setting up yet another ALCS matchup with the Yankees. The Yankees quickly jumped out to a 3-0 series lead in the best of 7, putting the Red Sox against the ropes. Big Papi Ortiz, who is one of the greatest hitters of all time, and I can say that as a Red Sox hater, I can admit that, hit a walk-off homer in extra innings to win Game 4 and give the Red Sox some hope. In Game 5, Ortiz came up clutch yet again, this time hitting a single that drove in the game-winning run, once again in extra innings. The Red Sox won Game 6 by a score of 4-2, and in the deciding Game 7, absolutely destroyed the Yanks, 10-3. They became the first team ever to win a series after being down 3-0. They met the Cardinals in the World Series that season, and given their history with losing to the Cards in the World Series, many Red Sox fans began to get nervous. However, there was no need to be nervous as it turned out. The Red Sox would sweep the series and become champions for the first time since 1918.
Folk. Red Sox fans have longed to hear it. The Boston Red Sox are world champions.
Although Manny Ramirez and Big Papi Ortiz had both tested positive for steroids in 2003 and no doubt were using them throughout the majority of their career, one can't help but see that footage of the Red Sox celebrating and smile. Nah, just kidding, I hate it. I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. I hate every second of it. But sometimes, folks, the villains do win. And it does make for a cool story, and I can admit that honestly. But seriously, fuck the Red Sox. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you hated it with all your heart, leave a dislike. And either way, comment for the algorithm helps me out. Peace out.